Hey guys, it's Kevin, another movie for guys. Now, this movie reviewing, this is a movie that I was definitely really looking forward to seeing. After all the hype that this movie has gotten, I was definitely really looking forward to. But it was one of those movies that I really didn't know if I'd be able to see because it was one of those limited releases that came out back in November, and I didn't know if I was really going to be able to see it. But finally, I got to see it, and let me just get into it. That movie is none other than a movie that I think has been getting probably one of the top films to get the most praise of any film this year. One of the top, definitely. And that movie is none other than Manchester by the Sea. This is a movie that I was so interested in. I really didn't know much going into it, honestly. I knew that it had a lot of praise. I knew that so many people were talking about it, and I heard it was very effective. And the second that I saw that came to my theater, I immediately wanted to see it, and I immediately bought tickets, like, right when they were available. And I am very happy I did that. And after watching Manchester by the Sea, how was Manchester by the Sea? Manchester by the Sea is truly just as good as everyone says it is. It is one of the most emotionally effective films I have seen all year by far, and it is a true masterpiece. I loved Manchester by the Sea. This movie is truly amazing. But let's just get to the plot of Manchester by the Sea, which, like Moonlight, I'm going to try to keep this very brief because I don't want you guys to know a ton going in this movie. But the brief plot of this movie is that Casey Affleck plays this guy, Lee, Lee is this guy who, he's very secluded, he's very much by himself, he works as like a handyman, and he's very much alone all the time because of an incident that happened between him and his ex-wife in the past. I'm not going to talk about, but it's a very tragic incident, and one day he is told that his brother Joe, who has a much better life than him pretty much, has fallen off a boat, and they're told that, okay, he has 10 to 12 months to live, so Lee thinks that everything's gonna be fine, but then an hour later, his heart actually ends up giving out, and Lee is forced to, now take in Joe's son, as his nephew, and raise him, all on his own without really having any sort of experience as to, what his kid's really about. This kid doesn't really get a say in that, but through this, they get to explore, their emotional past together, and that's really all I'm gonna say, because I don't want to spoil anything else about this movie, but let's just get right into this movie, starting off with the cast. Now, one of the things that very much pulled me into this movie was the cast. I heard so many amazing things about all the performances in this movie and how they are Oscar-worthy. And let me just say that I think everyone in this movie honestly gave an amazing performance. I think everyone definitely deserves some kind of recognition. But without a doubt, the star of this movie is Casey Affleck. I mean, he truly does deserve all of the applause in the world, because what a powerhouse performance this is. And it's interesting that you might be surprised they say powerhouse performance because the kind of character that Lee is. I mean, Lee is a character that's very quiet, he's very secluded, he likes to be by himself a lot, he looks depressed all the time, he doesn't get angry a lot, he frequently is reminded of things in his past, but his character in general is just so damn interesting, and I really loved everything about Lee as a character, because this is someone who is doing whatever he can to try to, move on from his past and try to not really think about, but it comes back to haunt him. And Casey Affleck's performance is not to the point, when you see Casey Affleck's performance, it's a very subdued performance, but it's very honest, and it's very realistic, and that's something they did really well. He does have some huge moments, definitely, but it's a very quiet performance, but definitely one that should definitely be noted for Oscars. I loved everything about his character. I think he truly is one of the most well-realized characters there is. I mean, he is a past that truly is horrifying, and what he did I'm not going to spoil, but it really is just one horrible incident that really was no one's fault, and I really did love that about his character. He has a lot of regret of what he did. He's taken the guilt over many things, including his brother. He's taking the guilt over many things in his life, and seeing him try to abandon all that, I just thought was very well fleshed out. I really care about his character. I think he is by far the best thing about this movie. This is Casey Affleck's movie, and if Casey Affleck wasn't as good, this movie in general would not be as good. However, I am happy to say that I think the rest of the cast, while Casey Affleck is the star here, the rest of the cast gave just as good performances. And someone who I really don't think has been mentioned a ton is Lucas Hedges as Patrick, the kid that Lee has to end up taking in. I thought was great in this movie. Now, Patrick is your typical teenager. This is someone who he's in a band, he has two girlfriends, he's kind of a player in that sense, but he's also someone who is going through a very rough loss. I mean, he just lost his father, and seeing his grief over his father and having that correspond with what Lee is going through, I thought really added this movie. Their relationship is so interesting. The way that they start off not really liking each other, and yes, it's something we've seen before, but the way that these two kind of rely on each other and really do need each other, I thought was so well done. I thought Lucas Hedges definitely, two scenes in particular, definitely made me think that he should definitely get a Best Supporting Actor nomination. I don't know if he's going to get it. I think, Affleck is definitely a star here, but I think there were some scenes where he was just as good. I think he really did a great job, and I can't wait to see what else this kid is going to do, because he really did do a great job in this movie. And I was very surprised because I really haven't heard much about him, and I don't really know why. I think he's just as good as Casey Affleck, and I'm really hoping that he does get some recognition. But Michelle Williams in this movie, what an incredible role, and she's not in this movie nearly as much as you think, even though she's billed as a second main character. Be prepared, she's not in this movie a ton. But the reason that she's billed as a second main character is because she is the second most important character in this movie, really. I mean, especially what Lee is going through. It does involve her. I'm not going to say what it is, but the scene you see on the poster is an incredible scene. The way that these two have this conversation, there's been a horrible, horrible incident in their past that is kind of hard for them to get through, and she, again, gave a very honest performance, and one scene in particular I think definitely should give her at least Best Supporting Actress. I think she was really great here. I really loved Michelle Williams in this movie. I think she really did a great job, and she really was great. And then Kyle Chandler in this movie, I thought they did a really good job with, because yeah, like I said, he does die very early on in the film, which is not a spoiler, it's part of the plot. But they do, in fact, use his character through flashbacks, to see their relationship, and I thought he definitely was really good. I definitely thought his performance was very well done. You could see the relation that him and Lee had, the way he tried to help Lee go through what he did, and I just thought his character in general, I definitely really did like. I think this entire cast is great. I think everyone really did a fantastic job. Even these two girls that Lucas Hedges' characters, Patrick, is involved with, one's name Sylvie, and the other's name is Sandy. I even thought they were interesting. There's a funny subplot going on with him and this girl Sandy, and I thought even she gave a good performance. I really think everyone did a really great job here. One of the best casts of the year by far, and definitely one that, like I said, I would be very surprised if we don't hear about come Oscar season. So the cast here really is fantastic, but let's talk about the directing and the writing, because wow, I mean, when it comes to directing and writing, this is one of the most well-realized films in terms of directing and writing. Like I said, I do think this is Casey Affleck's film, and I think he's the thing that completely elevates this movie from being something good to something amazing. But the directing here by Kenneth Lonergan is still nothing to sneeze at. I mean, he did an incredible job directing this movie. Like I said, it's a very realistic film, and that's something that I definitely really did appreciate. And because it's realistic, it's not completely dreary the entire time. Yes, there are definitely some scenes that are very hard to watch, and I will definitely say this is definitely like Moonlight, a movie you know what you're getting into, because this is not an easy watch. It really is not. I mean, especially when you find out what the incident was, and how it happened, and the way it was played out. I mean, I can't really think of something more tragic than what we find out happens in this movie. It really is one of the most tragic things you could possibly think of, and it's probably not something that you're really gonna expect, but I really thought that was a very shocking reveal, definitely, when we got to that, but I thought the directing here was just so well done. Some moments in this movie are really fun, and then some are absolutely tragic, and it really is directed in the way that Life is. Life has some fun moments, and then it has some very sad moments, and I thought the way that Kenneth Lonergan directed that here was fantastic. I definitely felt for everything that was going on. I think his directing was just so well realized, and I really did love that here. But when it comes to the writing, I know I said that Moonlight is, one of my favorite screenplays of the year. This is the best screenplay I have heard all year, without a doubt. I mean, the scenes in this movie are really hard hitting, and but this is a completely dialogue driven film. There are some scenes that maybe have a little bit of action, but this is a movie that I was so into from the beginning, just knowing what was going on, the way the story was told. I just thought it was really well handled. And this movie is a fantastic message, really, I think, about guilt and how we tend to blame ourselves for things that really couldn't be helped and really couldn't have been stopped either way. And I think it's something that the movie showed very well, but also has a great message of moving on and really how certain things that you might want to get fixed can't really be fixed. And it was a very rare message that I was very surprised about, but I definitely really did love the way it was done. I have to say this, the way the stories handled in this movie also very much surprised me, because yes, this is a story that's been done before where, you know, someone dies and they have to take them in, but it's probably one of the most realistic interpretations of the story that I've seen. There is no random dramatic moment that separates these two characters. There is no like crazy person in this movie who, you know, wants custody of the nephew or anything. No, the situations they go through in this movie are completely realistic, are completely well handled, and nothing really took me out of the film. I think everything that they went through here is completely plausible. It's completely understandable what they went through, and again, a lot of it is not really anyone's fault, and that's something that I really did love, is that there's really not a villain in this movie, which is very rare nowadays. I mean, every movie seems to have some kind of villain, but this movie really does not have a villain. The villain in this movie is grief and regret and accusing yourself of things, and that's something that was just so well done here. I think they really handled that very well, and I think that that message was just so well portrayed over everything that was going. And like I said, the characters in this movie, I think, were entirely fleshed out perfectly. All the characters here, you really do understand what they're going through. I didn't really think there were any characters that made any sort of movie-type decisions. And I definitely will say, this movie in general doesn't really feel like a movie. And what I mean by it doesn't feel like a movie, it's not played out like a movie. It's not played out, you know, in a way a movie structured. And a lot of people have said this, and I will definitely agree. It feels like you're watching real-life conversations. It really is. And that is how I think it really is a testament to how in-depth this movie goes with their characters, how much they care about their characters, how much the movie fleshes out these characters, and really just how interesting they really are and how realistic of a situation this really is. And again, I say realistic, and I know some people might not have gone through this exact situation, but if it were to play out in the way it does in this movie, I think this is exactly how it would play out in real life. I don't think that this is anything close to anything like a movie decision, and that was something that was just so well realized. I really did love that, and this movie just on. There wasn't a single scene in this movie that I wasn't into, I have to say. The beginning of the film did take a bit while to get going, but I still was very into it, and I think it definitely was just as interesting as once we went out what the incident was. And then the way the movie's told, the movie's kind of a non-linear story, because we do have the present, but we also have the past, where we see the incident and we see how it unfolded and how it affected Lee's life, and I think that really added to the emotional weight of this story. I mean, just seeing it all play out, I just thought was very well done, and the movie really understands what it means to show, not tell. I've said this in so many movies before, that so many movies nowadays, they want to tell you everything, so that way they don't have to show anything. It's a very easy way to just give you exposition. There is no exposition in this movie, really. Honestly, there is no exposition. Everything is shown to you, it is described to you in the best way possible, and it's a movie where I was so enthralled with everything that was going on. I was so captivated by what I was seeing on screen that even the smallest piece of dialogue I was in the entire time. I found this movie to be so interesting, and I really did love the way that everything was done. And the way it is non-linear is also very unconventional, because like I said, throughout the beginning of this movie, we really don't know it's in the past, and when you eventually reveal it, I found that to be by far one of the most emotionally effective scenes, when it involves Casey Affleck in this room, talking to some cops, and I'm not going to say anything else, but that scene in general, if they don't play that scene for his Oscar reel, you know when they always have the Oscar reels and they play scenes, that is the scene that they need to play, because that is the scene that completely hooked me in. I was definitely hooked in the beginning, but I think I wasn't as hooked in until that scene came up, and that's something that I definitely will really give this movie, is that it really does understand. The way it set that all up, I just thought was really well done. And the way the movie really trusts its audience, something that very much surprised me. That's something I definitely really did enjoy here. Yes, there are conflicts that, like I said, maybe are a bit juvenile, because, there are those teenage conflicts in here, but I thought they were still really well handled. I thought everything in this movie is very realistic, and especially, particularly, the ending of this movie is a very ballsy ending. It's really an ending that I think could really go 50-50 for many people. If you guys don't like, really melancholy endings, this is not really the best movie for you if you don't like really melancholy endings. But for me, I thought the ending was perfect. It was realistic. It was very hard-hitting, but in a way also very bittersweet. And the way the movie ended, I thought really was as satisfying as it could have been, and I really did appreciate that. The cinematography here, don't even get me started with it. The second that we saw those shots of Manchester, I was in. This is by far some of the most beautiful cinematography of the year. Manchester really is a character in this film, especially because of the incident that occurred that drove these two apart. I think definitely Manchester is definitely a character in this movie, and it's very well utilized. I think just the location, and especially the coldness of how cold Manchester really is, I thought was very well handled. You could clearly tell they were filming in Manchester, and I really thought just the view and the way that everything was done, just every shot, there were so many great shots in this movie that I really did appreciate, and the cinematography here really was so interesting, was so captivating, and again, another great thing about this movie that I really did love. The score in this movie is nothing short of tragic. I think when the score comes on, it's not played a ton, but when it comes on, it is very captivating, it is very emotional, it's very raw, and it really makes you feel more emotion towards the situation and what's going on. Some people may feel that they maybe overplayed a ton, but I thought they played it. It was done really well here. I thought the score they really handled very well, and I very much enjoyed that. And honestly, when it comes down to it, guys, did I feel the length in this movie? No. This movie is 2 hours and 17 minutes long, and to me, this movie felt like an hour and 30-minute movie. It really went by that fast. I was into it the entire time. There isn't a single scene that I would really cut out. I was so interested in everything that was going on screen that maybe even if there was a scene, like I said, that wasn't really moving any plot forward, I still was very much into it because, like I said, life is so filled with just random occurrences, and that's something that this movie really understands. This movie understands life really, really well, and that's one of the reasons why I think this movie turned out as good as it is. Something else I really did love when it comes to the editing is that this movie really does know when to cut. And what I mean by that is that it knows when a scene goes on too long or when a scene just isn't really, is filler. The movie never has a scene that I felt went on too long. I think every scene went on as long as it needed to. And like I said, it really does know when to cut and when to not show what it's showing. It only shows the stuff that's really substantial. It shows stuff that it feels is relevant to what's going on. And that's something this movie just understood really, really well. I really did love that, and again, I think really did add to how well executed the movie really was. So overall, guys, I loved Manchester by the Sea. I think this movie is incredible. Again, it's a movie that you definitely know what you are getting into before you watch it. Definitely, it's not the easiest of watch. There are definitely some scenes where, I'm not going to lie, I was on the verge of tears. I might not have cried, but I was definitely on the verge of tears, and I was definitely tearing up at a couple scenes. One scene in particular, I think is very hard not to tear up in. I mean, just seeing the way it's unfolded and everything, I think was very well done. It is a film that has one of the most realistic interpretations of death, grief, and regrets that I have seen in a very long time. It is by far one of the best movies of the year, and I am for sure going to Manchester by the Sea a 5 out of 5 or an A+. I'm not playing around, guys. This movie truly affected me. It is something that is truly astonishing to watch. There are scenes in this movie that were truly very hard to watch, but then there were some scenes that were also very fun. It's a film I encourage all of you to check out at some point. It's a movie that, like I said, is very realistic. It's very hard-hitting, but if you can handle it, it is a film that I definitely recommend you watch. It is one of the most emotional films, but also one of the most well-done films I've seen all year that truly does understand life in a way that other movies don't, and that's another reason why I loved it as much as I do. Will for sure be on my top 10 list, and the second I was done with it, I couldn't wait to watch it again, and that is when you know you have a great movie on your hands. So overall, guys, Murray Manchester by the Sea. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie, have seen it, loved your thoughts on it. If you guys want me to go more in depth with the way that I thought about the occurrence, things like that, just private message me or something, because like I said, I'm trying my best not to give anything away. I want you guys to go into this movie knowing as much as I told you, and that's it, because it's a movie that's just, it's a movie that I think is better to be seen not really knowing much of anything, and that's something I definitely will recommend with the way this movie is. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be maybe for Legends of Tomorrow, I don't know, maybe a movie review, something like that. But either way, whatever it is, I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.